So I consider myself something of a recovering Pokemon fiend, as it were. When I was a kid, all I did was play the Pokemon games. I didn't really branch out very much beyond that. And while I found a love for the JRPG style of video games, I didn't really allow myself to branch out and explore a whole lot of variety. And while I have gained a wonderful appreciation for this particular type of video game, I admit I should have definitely branched out more. But because of that too, I did gradually find other video games in the JRPG style that I wanted to kind of share with you all. And while I expect the vast majority of you who may watch this video will look at this and say, well, that's obvious, duh. I am hopeful that I inspire at least a couple of you out there to maybe try some of these video games that you've looked at but have skipped over for one reason or another. A lot of these games, my thought process behind them will be there's similarity in playstyle or elements or something that people either love or have been looking for, because maybe some of you out there, like myself, have grown tired of the ever-growing mediocrity that has been Pokemon games in the recent 10 years or so. Because let's be honest, the quality has been drastically dropping. And that's something that we can pretend to ignore all we want, but the reality of it is that the Pokemon games are not holding up to what they used to. And I'm not going to get into that too deep, because that's just going to be a mess of problems. But I do very much want to just offer up some choices, some selections, some options out there for those of you who, like myself, grew tired of the Pokemon games and their ever-increasing mediocrity and are looking for something maybe that's, well, of a higher quality around somewhere, somehow, some way. And so I'm going to tell you that this is in no way fully comprehensive. That's just not possible. There's too many games out there to be able to actually cover in order to be able to give a super large variety of different games for this particular genre. Also, this is not going to be in any sort of particular top 10s list sort of setup or anything. I'm just naming off whatever came to mind first rather than any sort of this is the best, this is the worst sort of list. That's really the best way I can put it. I'm going to start off with Digimon Cyber Sleuth, the Complete Edition. Now, this one is particularly wonderful in that you actually get 2 games in this one for the price of about $50. It's a bundle pack deal. And for those of you who maybe have seen it and were thinking, well, I might like to do that, you will want to remember that you're going to want to play the game on the right side of the screen first, and then the game on the left side of the screen. I made the mistake of playing the game on the left side. Being an American, I went from left to right, but it's set up in a very Japanese Eastern style way of being right to left. So bear that in mind when you go to play the game. It's not wholly detrimental if you do play the game on the left first. It's just that the game on the left has some quality of life improvements to it that the game on the right does not. And so if you go and you play the game on the left first, you're going to find that when you go back to play the game on the right, those lacking quality of life improvements are noticeable. Really, that's the best way to put it. But this is a phenomenal set of games. In this, you are acting as per the way the title presents itself, a cyber sleuth. You are acting as a detective's assistant trying to solve cyber crimes. And you're doing so in the digital world with Digimon. You have a very good size variety of Digimon to get to choose from. You get to choose how they branch off into their evolutionary pathways. You have options galore to really play with and decide how you're going to set up your personal team as you go all the way to the end of the game. And this is a very story-driven game, but you have plenty of side quests as well to be able to take on. And you do get solidly rewarded for those quests that you take on. So they're 100% worth the time and the effort that you put in. I will tell you though, for those of you out there who have epilepsy or some other sort of light-sensitive condition, the second game does use some movement and graphics in the final battle that can be very intense and concerning. I don't recall there being any sort of flashing or strobing lights of any sort, but the pattern can be very exhausting on your eyes, the way it moves, the way it flows. So that is something to bear in mind if you are someone who does have a light sensitivity issue. This game may be one that you'll want to skip only because of that. But if you don't have that issue, or if you think you can endure, well, honestly, you're in for a great ride with these games because they're really just a ton of fun. And the second game in particular, the one that has that whole light sensitivity issue in the final battle, they took all of the great elements of the first game and then they doubled down and made it even better with an even more coherent story that flows very, very nicely. And that's not to say that the story doesn't flow well on the first game, because it actually very much does. It's just that you feel more like they developed the characters further with the second game, and they really brought something compelling to the whole element. And it's worth noting that this is also a slightly more mature game. It's rated teen for a little bit of mild language, if that's a bother to you. But if it's not a bother to you at all, then, well, I think you're in for a great time. I really do. Moving on, we're going to stick with the Digimon theme for a little bit, because honestly, I've got several on here. I've just found that the Digimon games, honestly, they hold up a lot better in quality and gameplay as a whole over the way Pokemon has been recently. And this one's going to be a little bit different in that it is Digimon Survive, a tactics survival style game wherein you are having to solve this mystery of a group of kids and one adult who have gone missing in a mist, have wound up in some sort of a digital type world, and you're trying to solve what could possibly very well be a ghost type event that has been plaguing the area. And there's a lot of detail going on, a lot of mystery that gets wrapped up behind a couple of kids that may or may not be ghosts, as well as an adult who may not be all that he is, while also trying to stop the rest of the group from just suddenly disappearing, because several members of the group just wind up going completely missing out of nowhere. And it makes for a really, really compelling game. You will be battling on tactics style game boards the way you would with something like Fire Emblem, for example. And you're going to be facing off against some surprisingly powerful villain Digimon throughout the series. And I don't know if there's perhaps an adult or a human of some kind behind any of this. Truth be told, as of recording this, I haven't yet completed the game. I've only gotten part of the way through myself. But I very quickly fell in love with this game. And I'm hoping that someone out there will also be compelled to play this game. It is beautiful to look at. They really just knocked it out with the atmosphere. And they were really thoughtful about the sort of energy they were wanting to bring forward with this game. It's got something of a bit of a creepy vibe to it, but in a good way. Like, it's not too much, it's not super intense. And as someone who loves mystery type games and movies and books and things of that nature, I found myself really drawn in really, really fast. So I'm hopeful that if you're interested in mystery, you might pick this game up because I think you'll enjoy yourself. If not for the tactic style gameplay, then at the very least for getting to solve a mystery that's honestly so far been very compelling. And moving on, I've got one more Digimon game for you all. It's Digimon World Next Order. Now, this one is probably the closest in terms of feeling like you're actually in the digital world yourself, like you would have seen in the anime. So if you ever imagined yourself in the anime as a kid, well, this game would honestly give you that option. It's got a lot of exploring capabilities to it, and you do get plenty of options for Digimon to be able to gather and collect and utilize as you play through the story that admittedly is not the strongest, but I don't think that it was intended to be the strongest as far as story goes. This one's a lot more about the experience of just getting to raise your own Digimon and play and experience and feel like a kid again, really. I will say that for those of you out there that are not interested in seeing your Digimon die, this game probably won't be for you, but the Digimon do revive, and you get them to be able to become stronger every time they revive. It's just a part of the game mechanic, but I've seen plenty of people say that they would skip this game because their Digimon die, even though it's just a temporary thing, and you're constantly reviving them as they hatch from eggs over again, and you get to choose new paths for how they evolve and choose new paths for how they grow and become stronger, and it's just a part of the game mechanics. But I know there's someone out there who's going to skip over it purely because they heard your Digimon die and didn't look into it any further than that. And you know, that's fine. It's just, this is one game where really, I think if you're wanting to feel the most true sort of exploring the digital world type of experience that you would have loved to have felt watching this series as a kid, this one would very much be worth the shot for you. And moving on, we're going to go into the Xenoblade Chronicles series. Now, this one went for the longest time just forgotten and ignored, since initially it was released at the tail end of the Nintendo Wii's era, just before we hit the Nintendo DS era. And so a lot of people either didn't know about it or just saw it and skipped over it and said whatever. But with the release of the definitive edition on the Nintendo Switch, and I think other platforms, there's really been no better time to get involved in this series. It has some of the most beautiful worlds I think I've ever seen. Everything you get to explore, there is basically no limits. Quite literally, if you can see it, you can go there, and then you get rewarded for actually exploring everything. The more you are willing to explore the massive world around you, you get experience, you get markers on your map, you get rewards of gems and other sorts of items within the game in order to be able to make your character stronger. And for the first game, you are guaranteed to be set with about 8 characters that are the main cast through the entire thing. You don't have as much variety as you've had thus far with my selections of games. But the revival of the Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition also led to so many sequels now being spawned that you have plenty of options to choose from. You get more options available to you, so you can choose what characters that you want to play as and utilize throughout the entirety of the story. And these games are not only big in world, but also really big in story. You're going to have plenty of material for quite a while as you play through these games. And you're going to really, I think, have a wonderful time. These games are honestly an experience favorites, and I can honestly thank several YouTubers out there who I watched the playthroughs of, because that's how I got introduced to this game. I didn't know it existed. I had never heard of it initially, but was introduced to it because of a YouTuber I used to watch that did a playthrough of it, and I wound up falling in love with the game. And it took me a long time to find the original in a used game store, and then when I heard that the definitive edition would be coming out, I jumped on it because it was something that I fell in love with, and I still love it to this day. I think you're going to find that this is going to be a game series that if you have ignored it up to now, you're going to fall in love with it just based on the sheer beauty of it, if nothing else. It's such a gorgeous series of games to look at. And all the while, at least for the first game, it's a battle of man versus machine. For those of you out there who have played this series of games, chime in. If there's something that you would recommend on it, by all means, go for it. I'm hopeful that between my love for this game and your love for this game, that maybe we can combine to inspire some people who have not looked at these games to look into them and maybe fall in love with them as well. The next set of games, well, they really need no introduction because it's the Final Fantasy series as a whole. I know that this is probably one of the most obvious choices out there, and that really comes as no surprise. But my reason for putting it on here, not only because it would be blasphemous not to, but because I know that there are so many people out there who look at this franchise and they say, well, that's very intimidating. There's so much. I don't know where to begin. And that's fair. I would personally recommend that you look at plenty of top 10 lists out there and see what other people say, and use that to help you determine which game you want to start with. But if you want my personal recommendation, go ahead and start with Final Fantasy VII or Final Fantasy IX. Both of those are excellent games. And there's a reason they consistently wind up being rated in the top 10 on most people's favorites list, if not their top 5. They're beautiful games. They tell exceptional stories, and frankly, in the current era of gaming that we're in right now, where Final Fantasy has finally been put on multiple platforms, you're not limited to just the PlayStation if you don't own a PlayStation. You have the options to play with them on the Switch. You have the options to check them out on PC and go that route. You have the option to begin anywhere. And the best part is that almost none of these games, barring a couple of them, have any sort of need for you to have played a previous game in order to understand what's going on. The only ones I know that do that are 10-2, which is a direct sequel to 10, and I think 13-2, and those are it. Other than that, everything is standalone. You are not required to have played any previous game in order to be able to understand what's happening. There is definitely an argument for some of them not being worth playing, either because of game mechanics or because the stories weren't great or because the characters weren't great. Some of the battle mechanics and some of them have been known to be detestable, frankly. But, use that to help you decide where to begin. You can't go wrong. It's the best part of it all. You can just choose one. I think my first one was Final Fantasy IX. And you just start from there and go. And you're not going to have any issue enjoying yourself, really. As long as you let yourself just get involved in these stories and these characters, you're going to have a good time. My next option on the list is probably the most mature of the games that's going to wind up on this list. So bear it in mind that if you're not interested in a mature series, or maybe you're a kid and you're not old enough for these games. The Persona series, and by extension and direct connection, the Shin Megami Tensei series, are really exceptional games. You've got no better time than now to finally be able to play these games if you've seen them and you've chosen to ignore them, because Atlus, the company that develops and creates these games, are constantly updating them and re-releasing these games with extra content, extra characters, extra story, extra everything. They just absolutely go full ham and throw so much material at you. And with Personas 3, 4, and 5 all being the most readily available options, you definitely have plenty to choose from. And bear in mind that the ones you want to pick up for the fullest experience on almost all areas, you're going to pick up Persona 3 Reload, Persona 4 Golden, and Persona 5 Royal, if you want the fullest experience. But do bear in mind that if you are someone who can't handle more mature and subject matter, these games probably won't be for you, because they do tackle serious subject matter, and they do it well. They do it very well. Atlus is known for really tackling difficult story elements and doing most of them exceptionally well. There's some things that a lot of critics will say, could have been better, but more often than not, Atlus is praised for the sheer quality that goes into everything of the Persona series, and they're constantly working all the time to try to just bring you more and more and more. There's talks of a Persona 6 currently in the works right now, in addition to them constantly seeming to be going back to update their older games. There's another version of Persona 4 that's getting ready to be released. I know there's been back and forth talks of when and or if they're going to finally tackle Personas 1 and 2 again and finally re-release them, because those games were the ones that were definitely the most experimental in their early days. So they've really avoided going back and redoing them, because I think it would take a lot more work in the long run. Whereas at this point, Personas 3, 4, and 5 are very definitive in what they've decided they wanted to do with the gameplay and the structure and the elements of the series going forward. And by far and away, one of the very best elements of any of these Persona games is the sheer style behind everything. These games are gorgeous to look at. They are just absolutely above and beyond everything anyone has ever looked for when it comes to substance and style being combined and neither being overlooked in favor of one or the other. It's really something that we all really wish a lot of other game companies would do more of, remembering to bring the substance while not ignoring the style, but also in the vice versa, bringing the style but not forgetting the substance along with it. Atlus seems to have found a way to almost perfect it, and that's really something compelling. And with these particular games, you've got upwards to 200 hours plus of content depending on which game you play and how much you choose to actually complete. If you're a completionist style player, you're going to be in these games for a long time. The next on my list is the Tales series, or as I like to call it, the Tales of series. This series is interesting in that it's known for having a pretty extreme quality shift, whereas some of their games are just loathed for poor storytelling or poor character development or poor music or something. Others are absolutely praised for getting practically everything right. That has made the particular fan base for this one a little divided. That's really the best way I can think to put it. Almost no one can truly agree on which of the games are the best. By far and away, one of the ones that consistently winds up at least in the top 5 is Tales of Vesperia. But you can look around all over forums, all over the internet, all over YouTube, and you'll find 1,000 or more different opinions on which games are truly the best. So if you're new to the series, this is going to be one where you're going to have to really do your research and probably make up a list of your own of the games you're wanting the most to just start with and go from there. I honestly don't know that I could give you a solid set in stone answer of which game to start with, purely because opinions are so widely varied with this series. There's almost no way to get it right or wrong. It's just going to be a matter of you basically compiling your own list and deciding where you want to begin. But I have consistently heard, at the very least, that Tales of Vesperia is one game that most everybody agrees is phenomenal and would be a great starting point for those of you new. So maybe look into that one and go from there. The last series on my list is easily, by far and away, my favorite series on my list today. It is the Suikoden series. This is by far one of the most beautiful, exquisite, compelling game series I've ever involved myself in. And with the recent release of the remasters for Suikoden 1 and 2, you have absolutely no better time than now to actually pick up this series and just go in on it and have a great time. I think in particular for those of you who are huge fans of the Generation 5 era of Pokemon Black and White, these would be the games for you specifically to go and pick up and play. Because with the Suikoden 1 and 2 remasters, these are direct connected stories. These particular 2 games are one cohesive story, all flowing through 2 games that span around 3 to 5 years of time frame, wherein a war takes place in one game and then an even larger war takes place in the next, and it's all connected. And I don't know how many of you heard about how Konami consistently delayed the release of these remasters in order to ensure the quality. They did the right thing because the quality was absolutely ensured. With these games, you have so many characters to choose from. You are building up your own army and with it your own castle throughout both games, each individually. And in both games, the vast majority of the characters that you gather together are characters that you can take out into battle, but there are some characters in the game that are there specifically to do very unique things for your castle and nothing more, and that's okay. I will say that there are a few characters that exist in large part just because of the dated age of the game and the era in which the originals were released, like a character whose entire existence is just to allow you to change the colors of the text windows in your game, or a character who exists so that you can change the little sound effects when you press buttons or something like that. These are things that obviously you would just find in your regular everyday sort of startup menu now, but these were elements that were added in as characters for this particular game series, and in that regard it maybe didn't age the best, but these stories are exquisite. I personally do wish that they had expanded on the story more for Suikoden 1 with this remaster that they did, but even as it is, even in its present state, these are gorgeous games that will have you get emotionally involved in so many characters, because every single one of these characters, when they get the focus on them, they have so much development. You're going to be doing both overworld battles and you're going to be having tactics battles. So if you're wanting to branch out and to try some tactics games without having too much tactics battles constantly going on, this would most definitely be an excellent starting point for you. Because all in all, I think you have maybe a half dozen or so tactics style battles in each individual game. So not too many, but enough to give you a sample size of what you need to do in order to tackle those. And I will tell you that with this series, I both recommend watching a walkthrough forum in order to 100% these games if you are the type of person who likes to 100% the story, or just take it on your own entirely and go ahead and make your mistakes, because that's how you're going to learn with this game. It is definitely worth noting that you can very easily mess up and not get the best ending in either of these games. Less so in Suikoden 1, which is a much more simple game as far as its stories and elements go. But even in Suikoden 2, you can much more easily mess that up and not get the best ending. But that's okay, you'll still get an ending as long as you can complete the game. But if you're wanting to get a 100% perfect ending, it would benefit you to watch a playthrough as you're playing through the game in order to be able to get the best ending possible. And it will be worth it to get the best ending possible, because you will find yourself getting so involved in every aspect of these games. They really, really crafted beautiful stories of war, and it's really something compelling based off of a Chinese legend of 108 warriors that came together by one leader in order to be able to defeat an enemy. And that's all I have for you all today. I do hope that you guys enjoyed this. If there's any games out there that you can recommend that would fall in line with my recommendations, or something that maybe I just completely ignored and forgot, go ahead and throw them in the comments. I know that my list is very basic. I knew it was basic when I was writing it. I knew it was basic when I was going into it. And I did a lot of research to try to find franchises that wouldn't just be solely the most obvious recommendations. But unfortunately, the most obvious recommendations are the ones that get talked about the most. And so it's a lot harder to find those niche recommendations. But if you have anything niche in mind that you think would be great, throw it in the comments. Maybe there's something out there that at least a few people will look into purely because you recommended it. I do hope so. I really do. Well, I hope you all have a great day, and see y'all next time. Bye.